I'm just doing what you told me. A few years ago I started working for a buffet-style restaurant that's pretty well known. At least in the Midwest area. The job itself was horrible. As most food industry jobs are. But I was grateful for the work. And for my friend who had gotten me the job there as a hostess. So I tried to put in actual effort. A few months into the job I found out that basically all of the managers were doing shady things. Like doing drugs during their shifts and nodding off at their desks. Sleeping with teenage waitresses and giving them more hours than the rest of the staff. Cutting people's hours down to 5 a week if they complained about anything. All of the horrible things you hear of happening in management. I went in, put on a smile, and did my job as best I could. The restaurant itself was going through some hard times. So one day the big guy in charge, I think a district manager, came in for a staff meeting to basically rip all of us a new one. And put all of the blame of the bad reviews and low sales on the waitstaff. And me, the hostess. I was told I needed to present myself more confidently by wearing makeup and taking more care of my appearance. Which sent me off because first and foremost, I am a feminist and that was sexist as hell. But also, I was confident in myself and my appearance. But it's hard to keep a smile when I'm constantly dealing with people who are angry over outrageous meal prices that were advertised as being much lower. Or people angry over their disgusting food. I also pointed out to him that I have worked in restaurants my entire life and I had applied to be a cook, not a hostess, and felt I was way more qualified to be back in the kitchen. But I was placed as a hostess because they needed to fill the spot quickly after their last one quit. So he told me that on my next shift, I could clock into the bakery section and work there instead. I was pretty excited for this because I love to cook, bake, and I would have the entire kitchen to myself in that section. And I would be getting a small pay raise. Seemed like a pretty sweet deal all around. Right? So, a few days pass. My next shift approaches and I go in early just to get a better feel for the kitchen and the recipes I needed to make. It's all super basic stuff. Banana pudding, bread pudding, carrot cakes. Nothing too hard or fancy. I find out that I'm going to be trained that night by one of the assistant managers who I had previously gotten into a little argument with because he shamed me in front of a line of customers for not wearing an Oxford cotton shirt to work. Which I didn't even know was a rule and no one had ever told me otherwise as I had been there for months at that point. I pulled him aside after my shift that night to tell him I didn't appreciate him doing that in front of customers. And besides, the type of shirt they expected me to buy was expensive. And they wanted me to have at least 3 of them. Which would have been at least half of my paycheck to be honest. I was only there part-time. And since they weren't willing to pay me the wage I had requested when I took the job, I wasn't able to afford to buy special shirts like that for work. It was bad enough they also forced everyone to order crappy non-slip work shoes through a company of their choosing. And it came out of our first paycheck. Between the shoes and the shirts, we are basically expected to fork over around $400 on gear just to work there for minimum wage. Ridiculous. So, needless to say, him and I already didn't like each other very much. And I knew him training me was going to be a real bad time. But I thought it was worth it for the position change. Anyways, I clock in and am told immediately that it's a very special night because they're having a huge promotion where kids eat for free. And it was expected to be extremely busy. I panic a little because the kids always go nuts for the bakery area. But I figure it will be fine since I'm not alone on my first night. The night goes pretty smoothly at first. But then it happened. We ran out of strawberries for the chocolate fountain and I needed to run to the cooler to refill the pan. Only when I get the box of strawberries out of the fridge, I noticed every single one of them, all 3 boxes, were covered in spots of white, fuzzy mold. So I start taking all 3 boxes out to the dumpster. And that's when the assistant manager stopped me, completely pissed off, and screamed, "What are you doing?" Stunned, I explain that they're all moldy, so I'm throwing them out real quick. He gets even more pissed, takes the boxes from my hands, and just tells me to follow him. We go back into the kitchen, in the way back part away from the dining area so no one can see us. And he starts showing me how they just use the spray nozzle on the sink to power wash the mold off the strawberries. My heart literally sank to my stomach. I asked if this was something they do a lot, and he said yes, and they're still good to eat and not to worry about it. I told him I wasn't comfortable knowingly serving moldy strawberries to children, and I wasn't going to do it. So he snapped at me and told me just to go back to the hostess station and start seating people. I'm pretty pissed, but it's already pretty chaotic in the dining area. So I did as I was told, the whole time planning the phone call I was going to make to the health department later, and what I was going to write in my 2 weeks' notice. Not even 10 minutes later, a customer came up to me with a bowl full of strawberries, complaining she had found mold on them and her child almost ate it. Obviously, I feel horrible of course and start trying to apologize to her, while waving the assistant manager over to talk to her because she asked to speak with one. He comes over, sees the strawberries, and I just go, "She found mold on her son's strawberries and would like a refund." Right away he's all smiles and sincerity, apologizing to her and walking her over to my cash register to give her her money back. When I hear him tell her, "Our bakery cook is still in training, so I will make sure I bring this to her attention and correct it." That's when I snapped. I walked right up to them and said, with the most confused look I could manage, "I thought you told me to just wash the mold off and they would be fine? I'm just doing what you told me." Words cannot even begin to describe the look of sheer bewilderment on both of their faces. She yells first, "Are you kidding?" I knew I was getting fired already at that point, so I start gathering my things from under the counter and clocking out while listening to him try to defuse the situation, apologizing, telling her I misunderstood him. Meanwhile, my heartbeat is ringing in my ears and I'm about to have a full-blown panic attack because I had never walked out on a job before, so I wasn't able to pay much attention to what all he was telling her. But it was obvious he was just trying to keep her quiet so the rest of the dining room didn't hear what was happening. While that's happening, I go to the back to grab my coat from the staff closet, and snuck into the cooler to take pics of the moldy strawberries so I could send it to the health department. I made that report anonymously, honestly, because I didn't want my friend who had gotten me the job to possibly face repercussions, and figured maybe they would assume it was the customer who reported them. I got my stuff and snuck out the back door so people wouldn't see me in tears, having a panic attack, and went home. Later, my friend called me to tell me that they shut down the whole chocolate fountain for the rest of the night, and ended up having to refund a ton of meals because the lady warned everyone around her not to let their kids eat the strawberries. And of course, many already had. Apparently it was a disaster. And I'm kinda sad I missed watching him have to hand out all of those refunds on such an important night. A week later, I go in one morning to pick up my final paycheck. And guess who's the only manager on site? Of course he was a huge jerk about having to do anything for me, and didn't think it was funny when I asked how he still had a job at all. He made me wait at the front counter for over an hour because he was having trouble getting into the safe to get my check, which worked out perfectly for me, because in walked the big guy in charge and I'm like, okay, I'm telling him what happened. So I walk up to him and said hello and everything, and he asked how I was enjoying the bakery, and I was like, funny you should ask, and told him the entire story. The new hostess, who was a previous waitress who had also worked that night, was also at the front counter backing up everything I said, and he just couldn't believe it. I almost showed him the photos of the strawberries. But honestly, I didn't want a lawsuit or anything, so I was glad my former coworker was there to back me up. I apologized to him for walking out, and he offered me the position back. But honestly, that was just way too much drama for me and not enough pay. And I had already found something better anyways. So I declined and said I just wanted my last paycheck that I had been waiting on for over an hour. At that point, he went and got my paycheck for me, apologized again, and assured me that he was going to talk with the assistant manager. I didn't think anything would come of it, but apparently he actually did get fired after their talk because someone from the HR department reached out to me to discuss everything. She told me no, that he tried to pin the entire thing on me. But another cook came forward and admitted that he was forced to serve moldy food as well. So they were bringing in an entire change in management. I think she basically just wanted to make sure there wasn't any bad blood, or that I wasn't going to try to sue them or something. I told her I just wanted to be done with it, and that was that. They closed down a month or two later, but I can't imagine why. TLD, a restaurant manager forced me to serve children moldy strawberries. Tried to blame the whole thing on me to an angry customer, but I quickly reminded him, in front of said customer, that he told me they were fine to serve, and I was just doing what he told me to. That's a golden story. I was glad you were able to corral the big guy and tell him what happened. This was painful to read on so many levels. I too have a background in the industry. I was a line cook in fine dining restaurants. Don't get me wrong. We put a lot of effort into utilizing every scrap of ingredients that we could, but we immediately trashed anything that wasn't up to our exacting quality standards. You do not fuck around with the health and safety of your customers. That's the fastest way to go out of business. For future reference, a job can only force you to buy uniforms if the uniforms cost keep you at or above minimum wage. If those uniforms costed you half a month's paycheck and you were only making minimum wage, I highly doubt that was legal. https www.consumerreports.org/consumerist/is-legal-for-employers-to-make-employees-for-uniforms/ Between the shoes and the shirts, we are basically expected to fork over around $400 on gear just to work there for minimum wage. For anyone else in a similar position, the FLSA allows deductions to be made from your pay only if those deductions do not take you below federal minimum wage for the workweek in which those deductions are made. So, if you made federal minimum wage and they made any deductions for uniforms, that was illegal. If you made more than federal minimum wage, that was probably illegal. If those deductions took you below federal minimum wage, https www.dol.gov/agencies/wh-fact-sheets/16-FLSA-wage-deductions. Some states have stricter rules limiting permissible deductions, but this covers you if your state doesn't or has less strict rules. That sounds like the Golden Corral in my town. People complained of mouse droppings on saucers with a roll or piece of pie. Not to mention cockroaches, moldy food, bad meat. Anything that could be wrong in a restaurant was apparently normal there. Fortunately, I never went there, because I'm not a fan of buffets. But it was a super popular place for a long time. How does anyone who works with food think washing would remove mold? Damn, had to search for the term chocolate fountain to make sure. Oh, Golden Corral. And this is one of many reasons I'm hesitant to eat out. There are an endless stream of horror stories of dangerous food practices at restaurants. How many rat or cockroach infested do you think you've eaten at? And if you eat upscale, you're not safe there either. Nice job. You have such integrity. I'm not sure I'd have been able to confront the manager or tell the boss about everything. That took guts. Long read, but so worth it. I'm glad corporate took action. But you know they only did so to cover their own asses and not those of the employees. That was brutal, but it's a great story. Stay strong, and I hope your new job turns out better. It is illegal to have work expenses, like uniforms, put you below minimum wage. Thanks for posting. I worked in food service when young. And 100% of the food issues derive from crap management as described. I think about it any time I eat out. And mostly avoid the fast food places where I know they treat employees like crap. Forcing them to serve crap. My very first job was at a Stuckey's. A husband-wife management team was provided a small, nice apartment attached to the rear of the building. So always on site. The grill, food area was managed by the wife. A tiny, lovely drill sergeant of food safety. Where everything was kept spotless. Food temps taken in freezers, fridges at regular hours and recorded. Behind and under the grills, deep fryers, counters were cleaned daily. All pre-prep food had throwaway date, times, and were followed. She explained the rules, laws, regulations of food safety, and pitched in daily to demonstrate, help with and inspect the work. The place sparkled. It was like working for an angel. Following that job, nothing, not one restaurant, ever measured up to those standards. But miraculously, all had an A rating displayed from the Board of Health. Imagine that. He made me wait at the front counter for over an hour because he was having trouble getting into the safe to get my check. Which worked out perfectly for me. Because in walked the big guy in charge. Things may have blown up anyways. But I always wonder if these people ever realize the sheer extent to which they bring things upon themselves. Years ago, I worked at a corporate-owned hospital. I'm a registered nurse. The corporation was on this new trend of outsourcing. The dietary department was outsourced to a contracted company. The housekeeping, laundry department was outsourced to a contracted company. One day, the patients got their supper tray and the call lights started going on up and down the hallway. Every patient that got the salad found at least 2 live caterpillars on their tray. Of course, the contracted manager of the dietary department doesn't work past 5 p.m. So I gathered every tray from the patients, after getting them something else that was safe to eat, and took it to his office and piled the trays on his desk with the note, "Live caterpillars found in the salad." Of course, nothing was ever done about the situation. The contracted housekeeping, laundry manager had come to the hospital from the hotel industry. He factored 1 linen change per day for each bed on each unit. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that sick people mess up more sheets. And a hospital is where sick people come to be treated. Every unit ran out of linens within hours of the first shift. Leaving that hospital was the best thing I ever did. It wasn't long before the hospital was sold to a competitor and was repurposed as a non-acute setting. This sounds like Golden Corral. Sleeping with someone for more hours. One as a dumb underage teenager and the other a manager? SMH, it's vile. But holy hell, at least the stupid girls who do it for a value meal and coach purses. As per Oprah, drive Phil. Make more sense to me. I loathe the sex work industry. And I have worked it. WTF, why at the very least are there not people telling these girls how to charge if they aren't going to help them? You gotta be a server and a prostitute? F in the chat. At least stripping, I had customers buying me gifts and paying so I didn't have to work my shift at the club so I could sit and BS with them. My heart hurts for those girls. Yeah. I tried to look out for my coworkers because Lord help some. Those servers need a big sister. Swear. 40 years or so ago, when I was much younger, I worked at a restaurant chain that was known for their breakfast buffet and strawberry pie. The pie was really good. As long as it was strawberry season. I learned it was best not to order the pie when strawberries weren't available locally for the same reason as your story. Management would carve the rotting berries up, saving the bits and pieces that weren't completely rotten and adding them to the pies. I haven't had strawberry pie from any restaurant ever since. Face vomiting. I used to work delivery for Coca-Cola and thus had access to many a kitchen. Now, a restaurant kitchen is a completely different animal than a home kitchen. But yeah, I knocked most buffets and a lot of other restaurants off my list of places to eat. My favorite was when I was rolling in 500 pounds of bag-in-box product on a hand truck. Went to turn and the hand truck just spun on the accumulated grease on the floor and wiped out a prep table full of chicken parts. Restaurant manager went insane. It almost came to fisticuffs and ended with me saying I'd drop his shit at the back door from now on. Dude about toted an ass whipping that day. But luckily no one at Coke believed I'd get that pissed off, and like I said, we just dropped shit off at the back door from then on. I don't eat at buffets. Lol. As a restaurant manager, this just hurts to hear about managers acting like this. What an absolute disgrace. Good on you for reporting it.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epicaricast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.